Do you go by Madam President, Your Excellency, Ambassador? What is the preferred title?
Whatever you choose, or Annalena, but it's hard. It's in Lena, not Lena.
Annalena.
Yes.
That sounds, and I said Lena.
No.
Because I pronounced it correctly?
Yes,
I think you might be wrong.
After 46 years, thank you for
No, you're very welcome. I've been meaning to do that. You are the president of the United Nations General Assembly. I think most people did not realize that there is a president of the General Assembly. How long is your term? What are the duties?
Indeed, it's a very short term. It's only 1 year time. So in German, we would say you're just being thrown into the water, the cold water, we say in Germany.
Sure.
And then you just have to start swimming. And the job is to bring the whole international family, so 193, to the table. Sounds quite similar. But in a time where one of these member states might have a nuclear weapon and the other one just has a conflict. Imagine if you bring your family to the Thanksgiving table and you have the cranky uncle and you have your hippie mother, and then you just sing from the same songbook. It's also a hard job. So yes, in these times where not everybody is ready to sing from the same songbook anymore, my biggest task is actually to defend the songbook, the Charter of the United Nations, peace and security, sustainable development, and human rights.
Right, for the United Nations. That's what they do. In that analogy, does the crazy uncle or the hippie mom have the nuclear weapon?
Well, frankly speaking, in history, the women hardly had the nuclear weapon.
No, this was Japanese point. So, as president, you are tasked with selecting, or at least doing the interviews for the next Secretary General. Is that correct?
Right.
How many candidates do you have? Is this like a monster.com? How do you get candidates to be the Secretary General? How are they submitted? Is it controversial?
Yes, and it will be probably the hardest job interview ever, because these 193 member states, they can all ask the question, be interviewed. So I'm presiding over it. It starts tomorrow, actually. So if you want to see it, live on UN Web TV. So
wait, what? You're going to do this live?
Yes. Transparency we do have in the international community.
Let me ask you a question. What is the cutoff for resumes? And could I do it once a week?
The interview?
The job.
The job. Well, unfortunately,
it's a
24/7 job. But
how many people are you interviewing?
At the moment, 4. So, the question was, so how is the process? You have to be nominated by a member state.
Okay.
There was a strong call for women, so 193 member states.
There's never been a woman secretary.
Actually agreed on one thing, that they strongly called on the nomination of women. Yes, because for 80 years there never has been a woman. And I mean, all women here probably and out there in the world, we have heard it all before. It was really hard to find one, but explaining that after 80 years you could not find a woman if you have 4 billion potential candidates, because there are 4 billion women and girls around the world. It's really hard to explain.
It's a tough one. Here's the other thing, too. My guess is they'll bring in a woman to run it just at the point where it's basically unrunnable. Is it runnable anymore at the UN? You have the Security Council, which can veto. I mean, Russia and China vetoed a resolution to keep the Strait of Hormuz open. That's where China gets a lot of its oil from the Strait of Hormuz, and they still vetoed it. How difficult is it to even wrangle these countries anymore for resolutions?
If you want to have an easy job, that's not the right
It's not the right to be at the UN.
Sure. But on the other hand, there's always another option. So when they vetoed it in the Security Council, and to those watching, so they are the 5 permanent members. They do have the veto because for historical reasons.
Right.
And there has been a new initiative because obviously the vetoes in the Security Council led to the situation that in the past many conflicts could not be solved, and it was also to the damage for the United Nations, because it's about the credibility. So the majority of member states said, then you have to come to the General Assembly where all the 193 member states are. And this happened last week, so I called for this session saying this has to come now for the General Assembly. We had a big debate with many states underlining that in an interconnected world, what happened in one part of the world affects everybody. So oil prices have exploded. One country even declared the state of energy emergency, because obviously for poorer countries, this is a total disaster. It's devastating. Yeah. So after this session, we saw the ceasefire negotiations coming back together again. We have now this kind of unstable ceasefire. So hopefully everybody understands now that in this situation nobody can win if we're not coming back to diplomatic terms, and that the United Nations is the only place where you can bring together all member states from around the world.
Epcot Center, that's a place. All the different. I think it represents most people. Let me ask you a question. Are we putting too much on the United Nations? You know, my image of the United Nations is like that. It's the General Assembly, and we come in and we make peace deals. But maybe that's never really been its function. It seems like what it does well, because a well-timed resolution, what does that really do anyway, if it's vetoed or not vetoed? But it seems what the UN does well is, as kind of an international cleanup crew for the mess that the other nations make. You do foreign aid. You have refugee programs. Is that something that the UN would steer more into? And should we lower our expectations about their so-called peacemaking abilities?
100% right, because from the first day on, the United Nations was not meant to bring humankind to heaven, but to prevent humanity from hell. So it's therefore the...
I bet that sounds excellent in German.
Well, yes.
I bet that...
So, I mean, yeah, because we would go back to German history, it was unfortunately my country.
Exactly,
yeah.
You guys... Yeah.
And we learned our lessons, and it took, rightly so, my country, back then also was a Cold War, being divided, to come to the international family again. But this is why also me personally, as a former foreign minister of my country, we are making so clear, without this United Nations, without the charter, nothing in the world would be better off. Sometimes people call the UN naive with all the morals and all the principles, but the ground fathers and a few mothers, they've been through the worst in life, 2 world conflicts, a genocide with 6 million Jews being killed. Back then also many countries, more than 50 were still under colonial power. So this house was built to have at least some progress. And as you were mentioning, the vast majority of the work of the United Nations is to prevent conflict. Unfortunately, especially in these times, hate clicks 6 times better. So the good stories hardly make it to the headlines. And journalists don't write about the war, which didn't happen. We learned it also in COVID, in the pandemic. There's no glory in prevention. But this is exactly the main work the UN is doing, preventing that
different conflicts.
That out of a famine, another war would happen. Preventing that with regard to, for example, when we had the pandemic, where no army in the world could stop the virus because it didn't have any passport. Even the strongest countries could not do it alone. It needed the United Nations with the World Health Organization to do the vaccination for half of the world's population, children going around. That we don't have smallpox anymore. This is thanks to the UN.
I mean, you haven't been downtown, believe me. Since Mamdani, there's a whole... what I'm wondering about is, it's the sense that, you know, the changes that might be made in the UN to deal with all these various conflicts and things that are coming up are overwhelmed by this new order of world power play, that people are rebelling against this idea of globalization, whether it comes through international norms of an international court or the United Nations. You know, the United Nations is the black helicopters. It's the New World Order. It's all those things. When in large part, it seems like a place where it may be overly bureaucratic, but they're trying to get aid or take an international mechanism to help those that have been most hurt by the calamities that the great powers have visited upon the earth. If you were going to, what changes would you make at the UN to maybe make it more effective? Or is there a way to sell it to the new populist regimes that want nothing to do with international order? They don't want international climate treaties. They don't want international peace treaties, it seems. They don't want international rules of order. They want might makes right. How does the UN deal with that?
Many questions in one, so maybe
That's right.
Start.
You have 20 seconds.
I can share it. That's the best what politicians can do. We are very short in answering questions. You know. So I know 30 seconds are over.
No. Please take your time. We got plenty of time. It's basic cable. Nobody's watching.
I cherry pick. I cherry pick. Well, first of all, you're 100% right. The main job is to bring food, literally, to the people. Right. And this is what I said also when we started this so-called 80th session. Actually, it's the 80th anniversary, not so much to celebrate at these times at the UN. But when we started the 80th session, speaking in front of all heads of state, remembering them, no single day would the world be better off without the United Nations, because millions of people would literally starve. You could not enter an airplane safely, none of us, because the Civil Aviation Organization is based with the United Nations. So for all of us, it's in our interest, and not only for the poor people around the world, to have this United Nations. But on the other hand, obviously, some think now might is right, but we have seen also lately with the Strait of Hormuz that obviously this conflict does not only affect everybody, but also you need the support of others to open the Strait of Hormuz. And this is why, for me, it's crystal clear. The international peace order, the Charter of the United Nations, is a life insurance for everyone. Right. And nobody could sleep in silence and peace if we would accept that a bigger neighbor can just invade their neighboring country in the future. And as you mentioned, the climate crisis, I mean, you can deny it. You can just pretend it's not there. But we could see all over the world the wildfires, which also do not stop at the richest neighborhoods in every country around the world, because like the pandemic and the virus, also CO2 doesn't have a passport, and it will just spread all over the world. So we can only fight it together in our own interest.
Would you like to see the UN have more teeth in terms of enforcement, like where they could levy fines? Do they levy fines? I don't know what they can do. I know there's certain peacekeeping things, but when, let's say somebody does violate international norms, international law, UN. I mean, the UN has said Israel has violated, treaties, and yet nothing happens to them. What could happen? Can they levy fines? Can they charge countries? Like in baseball, if you throw at somebody.
Well, it's not the world police. Yeah, so you cannot just
What if it were the world police?
Well, we tried it with some courts. For example, the International Criminal Court. Yeah. Unfortunately, the biggest powers, they did not ratify. But this is, again, the strength of the United Nations.
Right. You have to keep at it. You have to keep trying.
Others said we move forward. And this court, as you asked, can you try people? Yes, they did. They tried one of the biggest war criminals when we had the Balkan Wars. When we had
talking about Milosevic, I think.
Yes, yeah. we had Srebrenica, so a genocide going on. So they tried them in front of a court. Now, for example, with regard to the Philippines, they had Duterte, the dictator, back there. So there's an international arrest warrant, and he will be probably tried in front of the ICC. The International Criminal Court. For others who have not ratified it, for example, with Assad, then it's not possible. But there are also arrest warrants. You mentioned a couple of them
Right.
with different wars going on right now. So these.
Who's the worst country right now?
Well, I'm the president.
us?
I'm the president of the General Assembly, speaking on behalf of all of them.
Right.
But
Who would they all say is the worst country?
So, well, obviously, the worst are those who deny dignity from other human beings. And this is why we have to stand up for it every day.
Right.
Otherwise, coming back to my own country again, more than 80 years ago.
Why is it so hard for us to learn that lesson? It really blows my mind that this idea that violence and might makes right, to take us back to a world that we were when colonial powers and imperial powers ruled, and war was inevitable in almost every location. It's almost shocking to see how far we've come, and yet people want to go back to that much more barbaric way of governance. Is that what's talked about in the halls, or are the halls of the UN a more administrative place than a philosophical place?
Well, this is a philosophical question.
That's why I'm not in the halls of the UN.
Yeah. So I would say all, because it's just the diversity of the whole world. And you asked before, what do we have to do and what would be the biggest task? For me and the Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, at the moment, to reform the United Nations, to make it more efficient, because the truth is as well, and I'm not a fan of sugarcoating, so we have to face it, that over 80 years, it has built up on mandates, resolution by resolution. So we have 40,000 mandates, obviously not very efficient, yeah? So in every company, you would just modernize your system. And this is what we're doing right now.
Right.
We're in the midst of a deep reform called UN80. But at the other hand, you should not use the shortcomings in trying to destroy the whole house. And this is where we are faced in, and you were addressing also the financial situation. If member states, and unfortunately also the host country, do not pay their bill anymore, obviously this house cannot function. And in a situation that people, especially children, are dying in this minute, you have like rotten aid in warehouses. This is obviously a situation which cannot go on. So therefore, as the President of the General Assembly, I can only recall that no day would be better off without the UN, and this is why we should all strengthen this house of peace and this house of humanity.
Have you thought about... Oh, please. I couldn't agree more that it needs to be reformed. And so my last question is, have you thought about letting the Ellisons buy it? So they ran Skydance. It's a very small production house. And then they bought Paramount, which is kind of a larger place. And then for some reason, bought Warner Brothers. And now they own it. We all work for them. They could add the UN easily. They have so much money.
Well, as I just said, we have like an open call, for candidates.
Interviews start tomorrow. Madam President, such a pleasure, such an honor. General Assembly, Annalena Baerbock.